Hello and welcome. This is the Love Light Law channel. Today is November 4th, 2025, and this has been a long time coming. This channel, the intention behind it is to share my experience and my practice and results from using Neville Goddard's teaching and sort of it's been a mishmash, if you could call it that, a combination of also Bob Proctor's work and Mary Morrissey and Werner Erhard and Napoleon Hill and Florence Scovel Shinn, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, also the Bible. Cannot forget about Yeshua. And and so I found out about Neville in 2018. It was just popped in the algorithm on YouTube. And the first video that I ever heard by him was Live in the End. And that audio really had a huge impact on me and shifted my consciousness immediately. And the first book that I read was Mitch Horowitz's, I forgot what it's called now, but it's Neville's first several books. And when I read when I read the first one, which is, oh gosh, why am I forgetting this now? It was the first book Neville wrote, which is, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank now. Um, the second book, Out of This World, and the first one, I can't think of it right now. Really were profound for me. You know, the explanation that Neville gives regarding Christ consciousness and the I amness with using imagination. And I mean, it was all very powerful. And you already know this if you have been studying Neville, so I'm not telling you anything new. What I found though is it took a lot of practice. Techniques like the pruning shears of revision and the law of inverse transformation, or the law of reversibility, as he calls it. That's from Prayer, the Art of Believing. Those, and of course, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. These techniques I really put into practice immediately, almost immediately, and rigorously, you know, day after day, week after week, month after month for several years. And I manifested a lot of results from doing that. And and those were personal results and business results, and there were also, traumas that from my childhood, from earlier in life, that I was able to heal. And these were things I had already been working on from doing other personal development seminars, which I've done a lot of. Just to give you some background, I did my first transformational program in 2008, and that was a 3-day seminar. And from 2008 until 2017, I did, over 10,000 hours of personal development seminars. And of course, read books and listened to podcasts. And so I did a lot of work, on myself, on my ways of being and acting, and getting results, and I got a lot of results. But a lot of that personal development work didn't have a spiritual component to it. A lot of it was mental, which was great. But I moved away from the spiritual realm. And as a child, I was always, I mean, I grew up in a Christian home, and so Christianity and Jesus were part of my upbringing. Then I moved away from that, and Neville brought me back to that spiritual place and brought me back to the Bible and really looking at what was the core message of Christ. And so I'm grateful for that. God led me back to him, and Neville played a big part in that. So I have no reservations about being a Christian. I don't, although I'm not like a Christian, I would say in the traditional sense. Um, I'm not evangelical, but I do share the gospel, and I absolutely believe in Christ and the resurrection and the art the I don't see, even if you don't believe in Jesus Christ was the Son of God, was, the God man incarnate. I don't know any other archetype in history that's as powerful as Jesus Christ or Yeshua. So so I don't think anyone can refute that. So back to Neville. So I know from being on Reddit and a little bit on TikTok that people have struggled with applying Neville's teachings in their life, and people have gotten frustrated and they give up. And I think that's natural. That's part of the process because you're developing a muscle, a mental muscle. Your mental faculty called imagination is in our society, it's naturally atrophied because we don't need to use our imagination because everything is really created for us and given to us, handed to us. And so we're not developed to think and use our mental faculties like imagination, intuition, perception, memory, will, reason. All these mental faculties, I can tell, are sort of lost in the modern age for a lot of us, not everyone. And so, if you have struggled with applying Neville's techniques, well, I encourage you to persevere. As Neville would say, you persevere. And that one of the things Neville said that always stuck with me, that was very powerful, was that the only sin is doubt. The only true sin is doubt. When you doubt yourself, you're doubting God. And as you know, Jesus said that, the faith of a mustard seed could move mountains. But that faith, that ability to have faith comes in different levels. We all have different levels of faith, and for those of us who have less faith, it requires more effort and input to raise that, to develop that muscle and raise our vibration to believing before seeing, right? And you know that cliche, seeing is believing, and that's what we're all taught. And it's backwards, right? I mean, it works for some people, but really, truly, believing is seeing. Can you see before, can you, as Bob Proctor would say, look, if you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand, right? And Bob Proctor was one of my mentors while he was still alive, and I'm very grateful to have spent a little bit of time with Bob. And Bob was a student of Neville, right? If you ever get a chance, if you haven't listened to the Mind Valley meditation by Bob, the first thing he quotes is out of The Power of Awareness with Neville. Man's chief delusion is his conviction that there are causes other than his own state of consciousness. All that befalls a man, all that is done by him, and all that comes from him happens as a result of his state of consciousness. And I can't tell you how many times I've repeated that to myself over and over and over again, because repetition is key to learning anything. We must learn to repeat the ideas and the vision that we have for ourselves in our life, and assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And there were some things that I manifested with Neville's teaching. One of them was, and it's everyone's desire. God puts something different in each of our hearts to bring to fruition. And unfortunately, one of the things about social media is that we have we have this input of what success looks like, and what the good life looks like, and so we subconsciously get fixed on having our lives all sort of look the same and look uniform, and that's that's an issue, and it's not going to be it's not going to fit for a lot of us. Not all of us want to be billionaires, or not all of us want to drive a Lamborghini, like really truly in our hearts. Would we? Yes. Would I drive a Lamborghini? Sure, I would drive a Lamborghini. Now, I don't drive a Lamborghini. My heart is not set on getting a Lamborghini. And should that happen one day, great, great. And there's other things that I have wanted and hoped for and desired, and I've been able to accomplish, and I'm very grateful for that, because you know if you've ever lived in another country, in a third world country, being an American, we have a lot of luxuries that we take for granted, and so we're already the richest people in the history of the world, as far as I know. Um, so so there's a lot to be grateful for. Now, going back to Neville. So one of the things that my heart desired was having a signed copy of one of Neville's books. And I remember vividly imagining, okay, this is just one example, but I really wanted to have a book signed by Neville. He meant so much to me, and I just love collecting. I mean, I love old books anyway, and enjoy reading, and I enjoy collecting autographs. Uh, so that was already something that I enjoyed, but I was gonna start small. That's the thing too. I wanna tell you is when you're developing the muscle of assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled and whatever that is for you, you don't want to go from 0 to 100, try to go from 0 to 100, go from, living in, your apartment to $1 million house overnight, or, in a few months. That could happen. I'm not here to put any limitations or boundaries, but it's just, be reasonable, be practical with yourself, and and set some small goals. It's good to have some big goals and then set some smaller goals for yourself. So I started with just something that I thought was like doable, which was a signed copy of one of his books. It didn't seem it didn't it seemed possible. It seemed to be, it was probably going to be a stretch for me, but it wouldn't be like a huge leap. So it was kind of, something that I think was very doable, in the near future. So I so I so as Neville teaches, I would sit in my living room, uh, in the mornings or in the evenings when I was relaxed. I would sit in my chair and I would imagine just going to a bookstore, a used bookstore, an antique store, right? Because this is where we would find something like that. Going to a used bookstore and looking around and searching and finding a book of Neville's, and I I would see myself, doing this and then opening up the first page, and then I would imagine just having that feeling, that elation and excitement of seeing Neville's signature in his book, and having it be very, fortuitous um, and fun and and just enjoyable. And I would practice that. I would practice that, and I did that for months. I don't know, several months. And then one day I just got this idea, hey, there's some books, they sell used collectibles on eBay. And on that day, I Googled eBay, and I went on the eBay search engine and just Googled in Neville Goddard books or signed book. And I was scrolling down the page. I think I went to the second page, and there was a book of Neville's, and it was a signed copy of Awakened Imagination. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is amazing. And the book was several $100s. And I remember thinking, oh man, this is a lot of money for a book. It was like $500. And I never paid $500 for a book before. I think it was like $500. But I said, oh man, I got to buy this. And I immediately just went for it. I just bought it. And it had turned out that the seller had just posted it that day. And I kid you not, that was the day I got, that was the same day I got the idea to just search on eBay, which I had never done before, and found his book. So the point I want to make, and there's a couple of points. One is that it works. Okay. Uh, Another point I want to make is start small. And most importantly, just let go of the attachment of how it's got to look. And this is, I know, easier said than done. I believe many of us struggle with the attachment of how the end result needs to look. And this can create some sort of resistance in the universe, or some resistance in the force, if you will, but and a sort of a barrier between us and our the outcome that we desire. That's just my take on it, because it's our job to know what we want. It's not our job to know how. I had another mentor who used to say this to me, and she would say, like, let go of like how this has to look and how this has to turn out. Like, what's the result that what's your target? What's your goal? What are you aiming for? And then just let the universe do its part, which is the how. Like, if we knew how to get everything we wanted, then we would just snap our fingers, and then we wouldn't have to, there would be nothing we value or cherish, because we just snap our fingers and automatically just get everything we want, and there's no joy, there's no there's no uh development or effort, or there's nothing to savor, right? If we just always get what we want when we want. So 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 letting go of how we get what we want, and this is this is very huge. And our rational mind, wants to know how. Like, how do you do this? How do you do that? That's always the question we ask, right? Like, somebody has the results we want, and we're like, how did you get that? Like, how do I do this? And, a lot of people are good at selling you on the how. Oh yeah, just, do this, this, and this, and you're going to be successful. And yeah, it's just easy as one, two, three. Like they have the formula, a one size fits all for everyone to reach success, and it just doesn't look that way. It's just not. I've never found that to be true. Yeah, everyone's journey looks different. Everyone thinks different, you know. Everyone's model of reality is different. And so again, just to say it for the third time, let go of how it's supposed to look. And this is the faith. This is your faith. And if you don't develop your faith, it just it's meaningless. Somehow it's meaningless, and it just doesn't work. And that's just not how it's designed. It's not designed for you to know how. So know what you want, why you want it, and then the how is up to the universe, or call it the subconscious mind. So that was a very fun exercise, and it was those little wins, okay, that really developed the confidence and faith that this works. And if I work it, it works if I work it. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. There's a book. There's another book called It Works, um, in the metaphysical esoteric, um, knowledge realm. This book called It Works, which is just really saying the same thing. A thought becomes a thing. the universal law. And so just stay persistent and persevere and continue to develop that muscle of believing before seeing, and trust. Trust is huge. Okay. We use these words interchangeably, right? Faith, trust, but trust is huge. You know, there's always more. We always have more than what we're aware of when it comes to our abilities, when it comes to our abundance, what we have, what we are. There's always so much more than what we're aware of at any time, at any given moment. So remember that. All right. I'm signing off. Until the next until the next video, until the next session, thank you very much. My name is James, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right. Don't stop. Don't give up. Persevere. Keep going. You've got it.